What's up?
You done spilling the tea?
Yeah, I gotta have my hot tea, man.
Awesome. Awesome. I like the blue on blue on the black backdrop there.
Yeah, stand by on my lighting here. See, my left one's out. I fix my left one here. Reset.
Just gonna get my lighting too.
Let me. I need to zoom out a bit. Here we go. Boop, boop, and too much. Can't can't see the.
I can't leave my glasses on because the ring lights reflect in my glasses.
Well, maybe we should get you some key lights and put them at different angles.
Yeah. Yeah, we should get more serious about lighting in my office. The lighting is good in my home office, and that's usually where I'm at. I guess I'll just have to look less smart, more bald.
Really, I'm just trying to hide the circles. You know what I mean? These
Right?
things are dark and
Mine are
poofy.
pretty good too. All right, man. I am probably going to miss OTF in the morning because I'm going to try to go to the Lincoln Chamber breakfast instead.
Okay, that's
So,
fine. You gotta
but I'll be back
Gotta
at it.
build an empire, my friend.
I'm trying, man. Trying.
Uh,
Yeah. All right. We are here to talk about what now?
Everything. We're gonna solve the world's problems today.
We should probably hit a couple of them at least. Down payment assistance programs.
Mhm.
What else? Investor loan options.
I I I don't see investors doing a whole hell of a lot right now. You know what I mean? With the
I
interest
don't
rates
know
the way they
that.
are, median home property and rent it out. You're looking at negative 800 to 1,000 a month if you're doing like a 20% down thing.
Your DSCR is like 0.6 to 0.8. It's
I
not
just
good.
I don't see I don't see a deal like that. I mean, most of my guys were first time investors anyway, so they were reluctantly doing stuff in general. Like they're all looking for a home run. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like let's get on base first, and then worry with the home runs later.
Right.
Um, and offering, hey, this is a negative $800 a month deal. One guy who's interested in something like that, but the rest of them no.
The one guy that you have that's interested, what's his reason for being interested?
I think him and his wife do well, and they're more interested in write-offs, so
Yeah.
they're happy to take a loss.
Yeah. The four
So
different ways you make money: appreciation, depreciation, which if you're a high earning W-2 employee, that is incurring and kind of adding up a tax liability.
mhm.
It's a great way to stem that tax liability, right?
Yeah, you're a big fan of looking at it from a holistic perspective, like the whole picture, right?
Right.
And so everybody looks at cash flow and it's like, well, it's just one of four main ways
Right.
that, it's like you said, appreciation, depreciation, cash flow, and loan paying off by someone else, debt pay down.
Amortization. Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
just whatever your goals are. And that one person, their goals aligned with what's going on in the market in that scenario. So,
I like to refer to nowadays as amortization as a hidden cash flow component because it's not cash flow. But it's money coming back your way in the form of equity, which is literally the definition of amortization. But for people
right.
that are financing versus paying cash, all of that cash flow is reflected in the person that paid cash for the property and doesn't have a note. Well, if you have a note, that note being paid down is sort of a hidden cash flow component
Right.
that you have because you had to finance and you didn't pay cash for the property. Doesn't mean it's not worth it for you. It just has to be part of the equation. You have to find it.
Right. And it just depends on the goals of the individual, whatever they're trying to achieve. They need something long term versus short term versus cash flow versus appreciate. It's just what are they trying to do? Does this make sense for them? And is this the right market for them to do that thing? If not, then we look at other strategies, other markets, whatever, and we find what works for them.
Had a lot of conversations about Alabama recently. Have you been seeing that as well?
Uh, I There's a lot of talk of Alabama back in this is probably 2018, 19 ish. Yeah, pre pandemic. It's just a really popular thing just because you can get properties for a reasonable price. There's a military base there, all sorts of um, options. So if it works for
Yeah.
your goals, go for it.
Down payment assistance. What do you want to talk about regarding down payment assistance?
It Down payment assistance programs are amazing if you can get them. And so it just comes down to, we want to make sure that people aren't just listening to a headline, that they go one step further and talk to a professional and learn what is the criteria for such a program and do they qualify for that. And so most of the time people won't take that one extra step to actually get educated. They just look at the headline and then they put all their eggs in that headline basket, and it turns out to bite them in the butt. And that's why you just got to put one extra step, do one little bit extra due diligence, talk to a professional, get the answers you need, and then you can see, does that even make sense for you? And like the Dream for All one is, the Dream for All program specifically is challenging because it came out already once and was amazing for the people that got to use it, but there was such a small amount of people that got to use it. And now that
Yeah.
same program is back, but it's not. It's the same title. It's a totally different program because the criteria is totally different. And so it's kind of a false sense of being an option, because people think like, oh, well, I know this other guy that got that back then, and it was an incredible program, and now that program's back. It's like, well, the idea of it's back, but it has totally different criteria. And so,
You literally have to win a lottery
yes,
to get the money, right? It is a great program for the people that are going to get the money, right? It's like any down payment assistance program, it's good for the ones that it's good for. And there are, I don't know if people realize here in California, there's over 60 down payment assistance programs. There's probably much more than 60 ones I don't even know about that are available if you fit into these tight windows. It's always a matter of you have to have enough income to qualify for the property, but not too much that you're above the income limit. A few of them don't have income limits, but there's other limitations. It's just one of those things where you need to your point, talk to a professional and let us vet it. I think a lot of my conversations regarding down payment assistance programs are asking me about a specific program. And my approach is to respond back and say, let's get the facts and then let me go compare those details, your qualifications against all of the programs that I have access for, and come back to you with, okay, here's the ones you qualify for. And of these 1, 2, or 3, which is the better option for you versus trying to squeeze you in a specific program or something else.
yeah, absolutely. It's the person who Googles their symptoms and thinks that they're dying, and then presents it to the doctor, and the doctor says, yeah, no, you have a cold. You know, it's like, we can get just a little bit of the information and jump to some conclusions, but maybe we should consult a professional and actually get the real accurate information.
So what you're saying is down payment assistance is a lot like WebMD. Don't diagnose yourself. Leave it to a professional.
Love it. Perfect.
What else, man? Is there any down payment assistance programs that you've successfully leveraged for a buyer?
No, I mean, not really. You know, I have worked with a handful of first time buyers, but um, at least half of them were people that were investors.
Sure.
And so the idea was they're trying to buy a property with minimal down, whether they're doing FHA or 5% conventional, something like that. And then they would live in it for a year or so, get another property, and then rent that one out. And so we just had to do a lot of number crunching to sort of forecast things, create some assumptions, make sure everybody fully understands that, these are assumptions. So that way they can decide what makes sense for them.
It's hard not to talk about investing because you and I are so involved in that world that inevitably it always seems to come back there, right? But what was the turning point for you when you decided to buy your first rental property? What moved the needle far enough that you decided to make the jump? Because you probably thought about it for a while before just pulling the trigger, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not a great example because I was literally teaching it for years, and I didn't have any rentals yet, but I didn't have the capital, and people are, oh, you can get these off market deals and, do things like you absolutely can, but that's a full-time job generally. Or,
Mhm.
you got to find wholesalers and do, find ones that are great and, don't send you garbage. So it's like I already had a full-time job that was entrepreneurial. So it was a 24/7 job. And then, I had two kids and that kind of stuff. So really just came down to, 2021 came around and in real estate, things were bananas. And so I had the capital to do what I wanted to do, and so I did it. Um,
So it was a matter of finally having the cash.
for me, yeah, because it in my scenario, like if I had a W-2 job and maybe I had evenings off or something like that, then maybe I would have looked at doing other options where I'm partnering or that
Mhm.
kind of thing. But I just was trying to develop my business as a real estate agent as good as I could, and so that took some of my time. So I wanted to be an investor. I partnered with my buddy on some flips and stuff, but it wasn't like my full time gig. So I mean, it still isn't. I have three single family long term holds, but yeah, it's just it for me. Just took it was up to capital. Once I had it, then I did it.
For me, it was almost the exact opposite. So I I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 17. I didn't even have a credit score yet, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And went to college, ended up becoming a finance major. So by the time I'm 22, I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's already ingrained in my head that earning passive income is something that I'm going to be doing in my life. And then got it. There it is. There it is. We actually play the cash flow game now at home, my wife and I.
That's fantastic.
It's a good game. It's a fun game. It's actually like, I mean, I don't want to be sacrilegious, but it's as fun as Monopoly. Like it's a good, and a lot more relevant to this day and age. But by the time I'm 23, I'm graduated. Don't know what I want to do with my career, but I know that on the side, I'm going to be accumulating real estate. Like that's just, it's a given at that point. And so I bought my first home at 23, moved out of it at 24, and was never even a consideration to sell it. It was going to become my first rental, and then my second home became my second rental. If I could do it all over again, I would do what you mentioned in the house hacking, which is buy multifamilies instead of single families. Because at 23, just didn't think of it. Like there was no reason for a 23-year-old college graduate making $38,500 at Wells Fargo straight out of college, who could afford the payment of a single family, not to just live in a duplex and double the cash flow essentially. And that would have significantly altered the trajectory of my financial life as I sit here now as a 40-year-old man, um, who's only learned so many lessons along the way.
Yeah, I mean for me. I'm just thinking you're ahead of the game in the sense that you knew in your early 20s, in your teens about the game. I didn't learn until I was 33,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well,
So
it wasn't a class in school. It wasn't a college course, right? I mentioned being a finance major, but that was just the how. It wasn't the inspiration by any stretch. They're not teaching you in getting a finance degree, business school. They're not teaching you at that time entrepreneurism even. It's really just how to run the finances of a company, how to understand money flowing and money sources and how the global economy works together and stuff like that. The inspiration really came from reading a couple books. One of them was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Another one of them was, I don't even remember who the author is, but some guy wrote a book called The Automatic Millionaire. And then he wrote another book called The Automatic Millionaire Homeowner, which essentially the premise of that book was buy a house, move, don't sell the house, buy another house, move, don't sell that house, buy a third house. And odds are that after, 10 years and you just living in homes, you will be on paper a net worth millionaire. And I think that is how a lot of people accidentally build wealth in this country just by buying homes and living in them.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I know so many accidental investors where they bought their home and then they got married and they bought another home because they got married, and then the house that she had and the house that he had became rentals, and now they have another one, and they just accidentally became investors, and it definitely proved out to be successful and they did well. But you came in with the intention. You
Right.
knew what to do. You knew what the goal was going to be, and had a rough idea of what it looked like. So that puts you above a lot of other people.
It was all intention and no cash because I graduated, we're talking to be in 23. I had a net worth of negative $150,000 when I graduated college. I had a car and I had $120,000 in student loan debt. So my net worth was severely negative. I had no money. And I mentioned what I made when I started my career. And I think I saved, my first house was literally $100,000. And I saved up literally $3,500 for an FHA down payment to make on that first house. Didn't even get a first time home buyer program. And that was the start.
And that was in St. Louis.
That was actually in Dallas, Texas, Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
I did eventually end up selling that property, and I sold it in 2016, I think. And so within 2 years from there, it doubled in value after I sold it from what I sold it for.
So there's I met a guy from Arlington, and they have I think it's called the Key City Group, and these guys just in a couple of years amassed all sorts of mega portfolio. They had to like stop buying because they just had so much, and they ended up basically wholesaling deals. But
Yeah, there's
yeah.
a lot of big groups like that.
For me, it's odd because I'm used to a California market, and so there's just not that kind of opportunity here. And so I'm part of it. I'm trying to decide: is this just me putting excuses out there and saying there's not opportunity because I'm in California, or is there actually some like legitimacy to the fact that these other markets are more obtainable and people can run a gun and get all sorts of doors under their belt?
I think here in California, the market comes and goes at a higher rate than in other places. And here's what I mean by that. If we were sitting here in 2013, those opportunities sure as hell existed here in California. Meanwhile, over the last 3 years, being a lender that works all over the country, I can tell you that most of the investors in California that I've talked to over the last 5 years were in fact purchasing homes in Missouri. They were selling a Bay Area property, buying a home in Placer County, and taking $500,000 and buying 3 and 4 rental properties in Missouri for $150,000 to $250,000 each with their 20 to 25% down payments. So that probably tells you something. It probably tells you that it is a little bit more obtainable if you are an investor in other markets. But if you were the guy in 2013 buying their first home and not selling and moving into another home in 2015 or 2016, and then not selling that one and moving into another home in 2019 or 2020, that would have worked out very well for you here in this market. So I think the answer to your question goes back to your original statement, which was it depends. What are your goals? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, being that I'm in Sacramento, but I bought in Missouri. Even though I've never set foot in the state of Missouri, I have 3
I think
properties
that's
there.
wild. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I had a proof of concept from 2 buddies of mine who had rentals in this town, and so for me, it's like I knew it existed. I knew the problems that they had. Like I didn't go in blind by any stretch, and then I was already a real estate agent here, so I knew how roughly the transactions should work. But I was smart enough to know that some things are done differently, like how contingencies just automatically go away there versus here where you have to be removed in writing, stuff like that. So I didn't go in totally blind, but it just came down to I knew, I had that full-time job as a real estate agent, and I knew it was booming, and I wasn't going to have the time or ability to like really do a lot of hands-on stuff. So having a Midwest market where I could have high cash flow, it was basically like insurance money where I knew if something came up, because I was too busy to pay close enough attention, I had money to tap into, and so it made sense for me.
Love it. So you and I are sitting here in Placer County, Northern California, and we both own all of our investment properties in the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
We have the land in Florida, but that's the only investment property that we have outside of the state of Missouri. So I think that is part of the answer to your question. Even the people that can do it here in California sometimes choose to do it in other places.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It just depends on what what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. And for me, it's cash flow is great in a Midwest market generally, compared to coastal markets, but the appreciation gain in a coastal market is unbelievable compared to a Midwest market, generally speaking. So
Right, and that kind of goes into what I was saying about California being hot and cold on a more regular basis. The cold always gives you the opportunity to find deals that you know are going to get hot at some point, because we know the cycle, how the real estate market works at this point.
yeah,
Well, we think we know.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I just, I just spent the weekend in a $3 million Airbnb in, Ventura County, and I know that my buddy bought it by buying by buying $80,000 condos in Bakersfield and trading up and trading up and trading up, and then ultimately 1031 a whole bunch of it into a $1.7 million property that he bought. Brand new construction, backs up to a canyon, has ocean views, and he bought it at, I think, October. He got it tied up in October of 2020. So 2020, when the market was really slow, he tied it up the moment things were about to pick up in October for 1.7, and then they agreed to give him a few months to do his 1031 and stuff. So he did, but he got offered a 2.8 a year later. So he literally was given a million. He had $1 million of equity that he earned in 1 year, and he turned it down because he wants to live in this house. But that's the power of a coastal market and the appreciation that you get.
Right.
So, do you think about maybe doing a 1031 and exchanging that Midwest property out here?
Well, to your point about the cash flow situation, it would have to be the right deal. So this is where being a real estate agent who is also an investor is, I think, just an unparalleled advantage in that world, right? For the people like me and people that, work at Kaiser or the state, where their day job has them looking at other stuff. If your day job has you looking at real estate, you're going to have advantages over finding the deals. There's an age-old saying that in real estate you make money when you buy, not when you sell. Anybody can sell a property at the top of the market. Not everybody can buy a property below the market. And I think if I was going to be a real estate investor here in California, like I am in Missouri, I would be heavily reliant on somebody like you finding me the deal, and just for whatever reason, not having the cash to take it down yourself, right? Or partnering with me on a deal like that, because it would really be sort of a microcosm or an amplification of that concept of you can only make money when you buy and how you buy.
So that is something. Here we are going on this investor tangent.
Yep.
We specifically said we weren't going to do this, and here we are.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen.
So my newer investor clients, they generally came from, big podcasts, and they're getting they're consuming all sorts of information from books, podcasts, and online whatevers. And so they hear about all these incredible deals and all these great, slam dunks that all these people were making. And so they're like, I want one of those. It's like, well, yeah, everybody wants one of those. And so, you don't just find a deal, or you don't people who are looking for these deals, they don't just show up. Like, you have to go out and find it. You know what I mean? It doesn't just come across your lap. And so for a lot of those guys, I had to tell them, like, look, you need to talk to wholesalers. Like, I don't have a side business of finding off market deals, and I'm not going to be able to bring you some sort of grand slam. And if I found one, odds are I'm going to take it down anyway. Like, no offense, but I'm in the same game too. That's why we're interacting. I understand investing because I am an investor. And so, yeah, that is one thing where I have a buddy from the police department who has been doing flips for like 15 years. He gets no shortage of incredible deals from wholesalers and the things that he's just been doing for 15 years. I don't have that expertise to, I know how to run deals. I know how to, see if they make sense and that kind of things on paper. I know when I'm walking in property to see if it's garbage or whatnot, and what it would take to renovate it. But I'm just not being handed a ton of these properties that make sense. The wholesalers that send me deals, they're I mean, frankly, they just haven't been honest. And so, I was at Disneyland running a deal. I came across my desk, and these guys were, I don't know, I don't know if they just weren't very smart or they were just super new or what, but they were trying to sell me something for I think 375 that was in the MLS for 325. And I don't think they understood that I had access to the internet or something. Like I'm like, I couldn't offer this guy 325. Like, it's been on the market for I think it was like a year. This thing had been on the market for a year, and so they just wrote him on offer and then tried to upsell it. So I've been come across wholesalers that are. I mean, I should be fair. I have only met like a couple, but I haven't had any wholesalers that have brought many deals that made sense.
Yeah. I've wholesaled one deal in my career, and it was a great success.
That's fantastic.
I've also only flipped one home in my career, and my wife and I bought a $60,000 duplex, put about $10,000 and 4 months of intense labor into this property, and we sold it for $80,000. So rough math, we netted about $10,000 for 4 months worth of work. And to your point earlier, like that's not going to look like a home run to anybody. But boy, did we learn a lot. It was a college degree that we got paid to take.
Yeah, I would say, what does tuition cost?
You
know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
What does tuition cost, and what did you learn from that? That was, I mean, you felt the learning from that versus reading something out of a book or being lectured about something, right? Like, you learned it, and you made some money on the top. So that's a win.
It's a win. It's a win, but on paper, it doesn't look like a home run. To your earlier point, like the education, and we went into it saying that. We went into saying, hey, if we break even on this and learn, then we've won. And it was this one, the draw to it was the low, the high floor, right? We knew we weren't going to take a bath on it because of what we bought it for, but we knew just because of the neighborhood that was in, the condition that it was in, that we knew the ceiling was low as well. So it was a high floor, low ceiling deal, and that seemed like a good one to learn on.
Maybe you and I need to do a flip here. That'd be some good content.
That would be a good content.
We can get great content out of that. And I've got a great contractor who's so incredibly reasonable. I can't believe how good his work is for how cheap this guy is.
You sure you want to say that on the recorded line?
What's that?
I say, you sure you want to say that on the recording? You're going to have people calling you right and left to get you.
I didn't say his name. Hey, I just referred him out to one of my clients that bought a house in Rockland. So here's a great little trick, right? I had a client, and we closed in January. So I had a client who was looking for a very specific area in Rockland, and those homes are older. They're very desirable, very rarely going on the market, and they were trying to get a 4-bedroom. We found a house that was perfect, but only had 3. So I said, well, in investor world, we often just wall off the dining room and create a bedroom. And now you have a 4-bedroom, and it's the fastest way to create equity because now you're comping against a 4-bedroom versus a 3, right? So we brought in that contractor who I really like, and he's like, yeah, we can put up one wall and put a door in it, and boom, 4 bedrooms. So they ended up bringing in a designer and going bananas and doing all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, they're in the middle of it right now. In fact, they signed the contract on that guy. 2 days later, he gutted the kitchen. That guy was ready to rock and roll. He's great.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we need to start talking to some more wholesalers or something. Maybe we should get on some lists and yeah.
Good to see what's out there. Be good to just see like what is the flow. What's the flow?
Yeah, I need to talk to my buddy Chris.
My uncle has been rehabbing properties in California for 25 years. I don't know that he's ever actually bothered to work with wholesalers. Him and a couple friends that are all agents find the deals themselves at this point, I'm pretty sure. So it'd be interesting to add wholesalers into the mix.
I mean, I got no problem paying a wholesaler as long as the deal makes sense. It's just the last ones that were handed to me just didn't make any sense. But I got no problem with knocking on doors if we need to knock on doors to introduce ourselves and talk to people and see if they want to sell. I'm not super salesy, so
How does that look? Excuse me, do you want to sell? No. Okay.
okay. Yeah. The thing as a cop, we knocked on strangers' doors all the time and just had a conversation, and so that's how I look at it.
I like it. Anything else we should shoot the shit about?
Yeah, definitely. I just got to think of what.
Yeah.
Because we got to get away from the investor stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. First time home buyer stuff. I feel like we covered that pretty well.
I'm not crazy about first time home buyers either. You know what we should talk about? I think they always say, what's your avatar for like your ideal client, right? I think for me, my ideal client is probably a move up buyer, someone who's going to sell maybe their first home, got married, have a couple of kids, they're going to trade up and get a bigger house, that kind of thing. That's something that would be ideal for, I think, most agents. But so I had a client who I met at an open house right around the corner, like literally a stone's throw from my house. And I was trying to do some lead gen near my house that I wouldn't have to like keep driving to crazy places, because a lot of my investors were doing South Sac stuff and whatever. And so literally stone's throw from my house, I meet this couple. They're super great, super fun to chat with, very smart, motivated, and they're retiring. They've retired and they want to, downsize actually. And so they're in Galt.
Oh wow.
So I tell them, look, because they liked me, and they're like, hey, maybe you can help us buy. We think maybe we'll do Roseville, but we might do something in Galt. I'm not sure. And I said, look, guys, whoever you're going to use to sell your home in Galt, you should have that same agent be the one that does the buy side, because there's so much coordination and timing and things involved. Like, we just don't want to have that telephone game where information gets lost because you're going to be potentially homeless for a couple of days or something, and it's just going to be stressful. Whoever you use, have them do both sides of it. And they ended up using me, apparently. So I had to drive the Galt a bunch of times. But it's just, there's so many timelines and so many overlapping events and things to coordinate. And when you're selling a home and buying a home, there's already 25, 30 people involved in each one of those transactions. Having your real estate agent, who's kind of the manager of that, of those 25, 30 people, having the same guy who can manage both sides of it, really, really helps. Because I've had to do ones where I'm working with another agent who's in Southern California or whatever, and they're not answering their phone, or they're not getting me the information I'd like, or I'm asking questions that are pretty direct because I want to make sure my people are taken care of, and they're like, yeah, I don't know yet. They're kind of hemming and hawing. It's like, well, let's get an answer. Like, this is your job. So just having someone who can manage all the pieces on the board and make sure things go smoothly really helps.
Are you finding that most of your clients in this market are buying and then selling, or are they selling and then buying, or are they finding the home and then selling and then closing at the same time? What are people doing right now?
So what I like to do is I do a lot of the front loading of the work, right? The idea is I'm going to have their house completely ready to sell. We've already done the marketing. We've got the paperwork. Everything's ready to go. I just have to pull the big red handle and it's live on the market.
How that works?
What's that?
Is that how that works?
Yeah. I mean, well, you gotta have discussions like, hey, this is how we need to make sure the house is presentable. We needed to appeal to a wide audience. So these things that are, family photos that are specific to you guys, maybe we take those down and do something a little bit more generic because we want them to picture themselves in this space. So anything that's specific to you guys, maybe we remove that, declutter some things, move everything to the garage, stuff like that. So
I just meant to
get all that stuff done.
There's actually a red MLS handle that you have to.
Oh yeah.
In order to get there.
Yeah. So you just do all that pregame, get the photos done. I build a property website so that we have a link to their website. So it's basically it's as if it's on the market, but it's not because nobody has the domain. Nobody knows what the website is. But when I'm sending an offer, I go, hey, we've got this house ready to go. Here's a link to the house. They can basically see that it's ready to go. And that listing agent can be like, oh yeah, this thing's going to sell real quick.
Yeah.
And so there's no risk, or well, a lot less risk for them because they know. And then we write the contract that says, we've got X number of days to get an offer, that kind of thing. So it just depends on the needs of that listing side. Which that can I go on a tangent here?
Absolutely.
You know how many times I've had a house for sale and I get an offer from an agent and I get it and I go, who is this agent? I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about their buyer. No idea who they are. So I have
They
to
never
like
called you. They
never called me.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like every time we write an offer, we start building a relationship with that list before we even do the showing to see if my client is interested in the property. We start building rapport with that agent because we want them to remember who we are and want them to know what we're about. And also at the same time, I want to know what they're about. And so when it comes time to write that offer, we're going to call and we're going to say, hey, what is important to your seller? What do they need? If it's vacant and staged, they probably don't need the seller in possession or the rent back. They've already vacated the property, right? But sometimes they're like, you know what? We are looking for a replacement property. And if we could get, 2 weeks to remain in possession of the home after we close escrow, that would be a huge benefit to us. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. It makes sense for us. We'll put that in. But then these other guys just write an offer without even talking to the agent. They don't know that.
Yeah.
That's a key piece of information that they needed. So anyway, that's my random tangent. It's like, just call the listing agent. Just call the listing agent. See what that other client, we're here to solve that guy's problem too.
Right.
It's a coordinated effort. Like, let's get everybody on the same page and get what they need.
Just realizing as you were talking that I've never tried to buy and sell a property at the same time. I really hate selling properties. So every time we bought, we've moved out, staged, and then sold after the fact. And I have to be honest, I regret selling all but probably one of those houses. The final house that we had in St. Louis, we kept, we bought our house first and we sold it months later, and we had to recoup the cash, and it was a price point that was going to be hard to rent. So every other property I've sold but that one, I regret it to this day, not having kept every single one of those houses.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's get rich slow, right? You hold on to that thing forever.
Yeah.
And just let it build up its equity, let it build up its
let it appreciate, let it amortize, let it depreciate.
Yes. Let's see. What else should we talk about?
I think this is probably a good chunk for me to try to digest and repurpose. The next.
Are you going to do all the editing yourself?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet. There's this program that I haven't dug too far into. I may have downloaded. I don't remember. Are you familiar with repurpose.io?
No.
I know that I looked it up at some point, but I don't remember what I found out. Repurpose.io. Repurposing social media content.
It's like an AI tool that automatically pulls stuff together.
Yeah. I thought about trial running it here.
Try anything once.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to so we got to figure that out. Long story short, we got to figure that out.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen is you'll have a single video of your camera and mine. So it'll be like a talking head, and it'll like switch back and forth between this guy talking, that guy talking, this guy talking, that sort of thing.
I know Zoom gives you the option. I don't know if this thing gives you the option. I should have recorded it with Zoom too.
Well, if it doesn't work, we'll do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning experience, like we said, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is how we learn to do stuff.
Right.
The are you still recording, or are you done with the recording?
No, I killed the recorder.